Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Think Bitcoin podcast, where I talk to Bitcoiners about big ideas, about art, philosophy, the humanities. If you've been enjoying the show, please take a second to like, rate, and of course, subscribe to the show. It really does make a difference, and I do appreciate it. Today's guest is Terence Michael. Terence is the author of Proof of Money, as well as two other books. He's a film and television producer, a recovering real estate investor, and he hosts Bitcoin Today, a daily show on X. We talk about the film industry, how Bitcoin can fix it, the difference between money and currency, Terrence's journey into and then out of real estate, why he decided to go all in on Bitcoin, the state of creativity in our fiat system, and a lot more. So, without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with Terence Michael.
Riverside's so amazing, though.
Yeah, Riverside is great, and we are now live, by the way. I was worried. We had the AWS thing yesterday, and Riverside was all wonky. So I was hoping we'd be
Yeah,
back up today, which we are, thankfully. Uh,
yeah. And
anyways,
Bitcoin was
Terrence,
okay.
yeah, Bitcoin was okay. Nostr was okay. Terrence, welcome to the show. Welcome to Think Bitcoin. We appreciate you being here today. So you are, I want to do some obligatory background on you, but first I'm curious,
Yeah.
you're, I think in California, Southern California, were you perchance at Pacific Bitcoin in 2022,
I
that conference?
skateboarded outside the gates because it's near my house and
Mm-hmm.
looked in and I said, I wish, because I had never seen Bitcoiners in real life in meet
Yeah.
space, and I so badly wanted to go in, but leftover, sort of from my Hollywood side. Like I had been to film festivals early on, and when I didn't have a film when I was there, I felt left out. I didn't feel like I was part of the crowd. I want to show up with something. I want to provide value. I've always been that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm going to come back here next year, but I need to do something. And that that really kicked me in the butt to get going on my book. And so I
Yeah.
showed up the very next year with my book. But no, I wish I went. Now that I know a lot of the people there and everything, I was just, oh man, it would have been good to be there, all commiserate with everyone during the 2022 bear.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about. I mean, I was there, and I was talking to a couple of younger Bitcoiners the other day about the flash crash from a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "Man, you guys have no idea." 2022, and we were at Pacific Bitcoin, and FTX was collapsing in real time. Sailors talking, quarries talking, and while that's going on, everybody's checking their phones, and the whole Twitter thing with SBF and his weird cryptic, what tweets, that was happening at the time. I think Bitcoin dipped down to below 15K briefly, but the
Yeah,
vibes were still very, very high.
69K,
Yeah,
69K high, a brief 69, mostly 65, down to, I didn't quite see 15, but I got below 17. And I was
yeah,
doing a private newsletter at the time to a lot of people in my real estate world and Hollywood world. I had like 1,000 people, but I just kept it private. And I said, everybody, I can't explain everything right now. I was on vacation in San Diego, and I ran down to the beach with my computer and said, get as much Bitcoin as you can right now. This will not last. And who knows? I
legendary
could have been
call.
wrong,
Yeah,
but yeah.
but legendarily correct. So those friends, those readers, very much rewarded if they followed your advice. So, well, Terrence, look, I want to do a little bit of obligatory intro. I think listeners almost certainly know you, but they probably know one or two or three components of what you do, or know you wear so many hats. You're an author. You've written, I think, 3 books. You're an investor. You consult on things. You have this rich film history. I think you've been working in film for probably decades. You've been deeply, deeply involved in that industry and very successful in that industry as well. And then I think there are also people who just know you for your Twitter spaces. They know you for your videos where we were kind of talking offline about, when you're kind of skateboarding around in the sunshine, talking about Bitcoin, making everybody, feel optimistic and hopeful. I love those videos. I always feel like there should be like some like Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks sort of soundtrack going on in the background. Those are great, but just give listeners like kind of a picture of the trajectory that you've had, I guess, from Hollywood to where you are now, because it's you've seems like you've definitely been on a journey.
Yeah, so I mean, in hindsight, it's really always been looking for a way to store my wealth and a way to confidently know when I could retire. And I wasn't confident in fiat without knowing that. And so my purpose and my skills, my academics have always been both business and storytelling. So I knew going into college that I wanted to make movies. I wanted to tell story but I wanted to study the business of it so that I wasn't reliant on someone else. Again, not wanting to look and ask and have permission. So I said, how can I do this on my own? I'm very much a DIY type of guy, and so uh, right after college, that's exactly what I did. Rather than go work for the studios and the agencies, which is what all my colleagues and friends did, I was sort of like the non KYC dude. I was like, no, I'm going to do this myself. They're going to tell me what to make. Screw that. So I raised a bunch of money, and I learned along the way. But made 20 movies. Got bored with movie making just because of the business side of it, and moved into television, where there's a lot more creativity if you're a producer. Television really is a producer's medium. Everyone else is just very hireable and interchangeable components. So I went into television, did 30 TV shows, and um, which is where I still have a toe in today, I should say. And I like to keep a toe back into film. I still do film every now and then, but I get to choose what I want to do. But with Hollywood being very much a traveling circus and no one having W-2s or regular paychecks, and us needing to know what to do, lots of people in Hollywood have side hustles. Everyone does it, and they're always investing and losing. And where do we put our money? What do we do? So I found real estate. Real estate was the obvious choice for me. Most of the world has been using real estate. Anyways, we all know about the friction and the headaches of real estate. And once Bitcoin came along, that it revealed that to me very much so. So I started divesting of most of my real estate, all the real estate that I could, that I independently owned, right? Like had my own keys to. Some
Hmm.
real estate I share keys with partners, of course, so I can't. We're still stuck there, even though I show those partners every year how much better they would have done if we had just sold even at a loss and taken the Bitcoin. Um, and so that's, I mean, in a nutshell, that's kind of what has happened. It's been sort of like these stepping stones to more superior assets or superior vessels to save my past energy. And by doing that, it, of course, delays the decay of currency because, it puts it into a hard money, which then allows me to make decisions that I've wanted to make. Hollywood, it's very difficult to be 100%. This is my thing. This is my art. This is what I want to do, of course, to get it out there because you're dealing with marketing distributors. What the audiences want, of course, but no one knows. No one knows what the audiences want, which is proven over and over and over again. You just have to sort of make your thing. But um, the studios are so captured and controlled by media and thus the government and certain narratives that it's very difficult to do that. Every now and then something breaks through, and then Hollywood will immediately swivel. But um, that's it in a nutshell. So yeah, I wear lots of different avatars, from writing to directing to producing, and I try to bring those things into Bitcoin, just mostly with storytelling. We've all heard lots of analogies with Bitcoin and explaining Bitcoin, and whether it's mining or custody or whatnot. But I try to do that in as unique a way as I can to help people. And the skateboarding around is just to add, maybe that's a Hollywood gimmick, is just to add a different visual rather than seeing everyone sit behind a desk, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm curious, Terrence. You talked about like wanting to store your wealth, wanting to know kind of when you're going to retire. Do you view? I
Right.
know a lot of people. My background is the humanities. I always thought I was going to be an English professor. To me, I mean, you can see all the books behind me. I mean, that's like what I care about. I did study film in grad school as well, so we can talk about that. But I'm curious when you're thinking about your quote unquote retirement, and that's probably a misnomer, to call it retirement. But do you look at trying to find ways to store your wealth, basically to be able to clear space, time, energy for you to be able to pursue, what you want? And is that, do you kind of view it as, oh, I'm going to secure this wealth over space and time, and then I will have the space to be able to kind of focus on your art, whether that is, TV shows, whether that's movies. Is that how you view that, as you're kind of just trying to be able to remove yourself from the hamster wheel to actually focus on that instead of focusing on that while focusing on the hamster wheel?
Yes, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's like, I don't think anyone really people that are in a job where they go to something just to mine fiat, but they can't stand what they do or who they do it for. I don't think, it might sound good. Oh, I want to sit on the beach with a margarita and look at the sunset. That I get why that sounds great. But in reality, human beings don't want to just sit around. We want to do something. We want to feel needed. We want to feel productive. We want to provide value. That essentially is all we do from the minute we're born until we die. We want to do things. And so, I think retirement for me and for a lot of others really is just, how do I harness my time? How do I get to say no to whatever else I want to? And when, so like, obviously any economy, any society, and it doesn't matter where in the world it is, you can only save the energy that you put into the system in the first place, right? It's a reciprocity, right? Like I've provided value and I've provided an excess of value more than like the gas bill and electricity and the food and whatever I need for today. There's an excess of it. So if I've provided that, I should have an authentication token. Like there's a scorecard of the sacrifices that I made to provide extra value. I should have that for the future, right? That's essentially what money is. And so I've, in essence, we can retire once we know that sacrificial scorecard is really, really large. And we're like, I have all these chits and I can use those. I can turn these in whenever I need to. But, fiat decays that. It disrupts that. It distorts that. It doesn't allow a fair game for us. And so, the traditional finance people will say, well, you reach $1 million and then you can shave off 4% a year, and based on inflation, you're going to be okay. Well, they lied to a lot of people. When I was a little kid and I would watch cartoons of $1 million, and I can own a mansion. I'm a millionaire. I can own a mansion and a yacht, right? The Elmer Fudd who would hunt Bugs Bunny. It's like, well, no, $1 million. I don't know anyone who could own a mansion and a yacht and be a millionaire, right?
Yeah.
There's so many things, or all the cartoons we grew up with where all the husbands are basically the single breadwinners, but they're all buffoons and they have time all day to mess around with their kids and family. It's like, well, where does that happen? So I've kind of had this philosophy, fortunately, at an early age, ever since college, but I don't know that everyone thinks this way, but I've always thought, look, life is so short. And I put a lot of things in the life is short bucket. So it's like, I'm only going to do what I want to do. I'm only going to do things that please me. And because it's not worth it. Now we can't always make those choices. Obviously we have to be responsible. We have to pay our bills. We have to take care of our family. And so, when I was making movies and I would get these massive checks, I also knew I may not sell another movie for 3, 4, 5 years, or a TV show gets canceled and the good times come and the good times go. I have so many friends and people in Hollywood that, they live paycheck to paycheck. Like that's the untold story. Writers struggle. They might sell a screenplay for a couple $1 million, but that may be the only screenplay they ever sell in their life. That's it. It's gone, and taxes and agents and managers, all take it away. So there isn't a lot. So that's just a long rambling way of saying, like, what could I do that in essence secures the energy that I put out there so that I have it? Because it's like, you can't have something for free. You can't have something for nothing, and like, that's what I don't like about when some people come to Bitcoin and they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to get rich off it. It's like, it's not there to make you rich. It's there to make you free. It's there to secure what you've done. You do have to do the work. You have to put in the value. But if you put it in, you can now save it, because now we have an engineered savings technology, which is what I try to tell people all the time. Please don't think of Bitcoin as an investment. Think of it as just a savings. That's really what it is. It preserves it, and it does, of course, grow it. But don't count on it growing it. Just count on it preserving it. So you do have to do the work. You can't be lazy, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm all over the place today, Logan. Sorry.
No, look, I love it. I love it. And look, it's early morning. We're getting the vibes out. Bitcoiners are so fascinating too, because they're so interdisciplinary. That's why I love talking to them so much. Is this they have so much going on, and so we end up covering. I always tell folks, like, look, we're going to talk about sort of kind of what we plan to talk about, but we're going to talk about a lot of stuff that we undoubtedly have not planned to talk about. So I love it. I want to talk about the film industry a little bit, just because you've been inside of it. You're intimately familiar with all of the inner workings of that industry. So I want to ask, have you seen that industry over time change and evolve? You mentioned you've gotten bored with it a little bit, but you always kind of keep a foot in. Have you seen it evolve over the years? And if so, has it moved in what you would view as like a productive, generative direction, or has it devolved in a way that is, negative? What's going on in the industry now?
So it's interesting. Similar to the fiat world, where when credit creation enters the system, or what we call money printing, it distorts the true signals of all of the merchants and the vendors and what people want to do, because people migrate to where the money is. It's like, oh, now everyone's going to become a day trader, right? Now the math professor is going to go become a realtor because we're having a real estate boom, and it pulls people away from what they should do. We know that in the fiat world. And in Hollywood, it's very similar. It's all of the producers and production companies are chasing the money. Where's the money? How can I get money to make my movie or a TV show? So we get these mandates. The agencies go out and they do research from the studios and the networks, and they find out what everyone wants. Well, those people know what they want based on their advertisers, right? Like big pharma and whatnot. And they find out what they want based on their demographics. And also then where the money's coming from. Like we go through these cycles where, oh, there's lots of Chinese money. So now we're telling those stories. Oh, now there's Eastern European money. Now we're telling those stories. There's German money. Now we're telling those. And the money will last for cycles, and then it dries out. And the reason that happens is because, 99% of Hollywood content and movies don't make money. They just don't. So, these people and billionaires, and huge conglomerates come in with all this money, and everyone's excited. Okay, everybody, we're going to tell these types of stories, right? And like even most recently, it's like with Black Lives Matter or with the woke movement. We're going to turn everything into women's stories or black stories. And that's all good and fine. There's fantastic stories out there, but you suddenly get a glut of them, and you find out people now have fatigue of that, and then they all start losing money, and then it's like, what's the next narrative? And you go into animations, and here's 3D is another example. Twice now since I've been in Hollywood, it's all about 3D. Make your stuff 3D. And it's like, we've learned that's clunky. People don't really want the 3D, and you're spending all this money doing 3D stuff. So that is because there's very few slots. There is a scarcity of distribution channels, right? And even today, like that's why we have this fatigue, and that's why movies. I mean, it's a great study on why scarce things become valuable, how scarcity sets value. Because right now, with the glut of movies, and I'm going to put those in quotes because right now, like Netflix is making things that aren't really even movies. I don't even know what you call them, but they're not the movies that we know movies to be. And they just throw them. They're just there. There's something that, it's very disposable, and they're not valuable. It's like, I remember a time when, 12 movies would come out a year, and a movie would sit in a theater for 25 weeks, or, like, wow, Raiders of the Lost Ark is out in the theaters, and it's just like, Jaws, whatever. I mean, I was just a kid, but, and those times will come back because people will get sick of just, here's a Netflix thumbnail of something that slightly resembles a movie but isn't quite a movie. Or the superheroes. Like, I think right now at the moment, people have superhero fatigue. Once Marvel sold to Disney, and once Lucasfilm sold to Disney, and even Pixar, it's like suddenly it's everywhere. It's like, remember when Star Wars, when there were 3 classic movies? And then it's like, oh, here's the ones before, here's the ones after. Now here's this universe, here's that universe, this TV show. It's like, I can't even keep track. And it's like, Star Wars doesn't feel special to me anymore. But so yes, at the moment, it's taken it away. Also due to technology, people aren't making an experience. They aren't going to the theaters as much. It takes Tom Cruise running with his shirt off to get people out of their house. But, they'll just sit and stream. And now, of course, with the next episode coming up before you get to even take a bathroom break or whatever, it's just, let's just keep us trapped, keep it going, keep so we can keep getting subscriptions and viewership.
Yeah, do you think that so I'm thinking about the 90s where it seemed like in the 90s there was some type of pathway for these more independent auteurs to still break through, kind of the studios that you had like the Tarantinos and the Richard Linklaters. You
Yeah,
had
Soderbergh
Friday,
and
yeah, Soderbergh, Menace to Society, like you had that type of stuff, Boys in the Hood. I mean, you had these independent directors who were able to kind of break through. But now, and I think what you're saying makes sense. I mean, do you think it's just there's always been a tension between kind of art and commerce, right? So, but do you think we're now at a point where because of fiat, we're over indexing on kind of where is the money, and it's just this ruthlessly commercial, ruthlessly competitive commercial environment because you have all the streamers out there as well. Everybody's competing for eyeballs, and there's just no airspace for like if Tarantino showed up with Reservoir Dogs today, versus in the early night, does that movie get made today? And if it does, does it kind of get relegated to the dustbin of your Netflix scroll somewhere where like maybe you see it as a thumbnail, maybe you
yes.
don't. It probably doesn't have the same impact that it had when it came out. And I'm curious, how do you think about that? Like, do you think we're going to get back to a time where do you think Bitcoin will somehow, if the world Bitcoinizes, does that help fix this kind of mismatch of art and commerce that we have? Or is there always going to be that difficult tension?
I think Bitcoin will definitely help because, so yeah, like, the John Singleton days, right? Boys in the Hood and Tarantino and all of that. It's on one hand, there were no streamers, there were very few movies. So when something came out that didn't look like Hollywood and really pushed the envelope and had cutting edge characters and story, it was really creative. Memento, Christopher Nolan, when he was, these were super creative. The friction was that movies were still expensive, right? And even though they would make them for 3, 4, 5 million, which was low back then in those terms, it was still tough. Nowadays, anyone can take an iPhone and even make a movie, right? And even Soderbergh, who makes big
Right.
movies like Ocean's 11, went and made one with his iPhone 4. He spent a couple $1,000,000 just because he wanted to be able to do it. Which he did with Claire Foy from The Crown. Great movie. And he proved that, like, wow, you don't need technology, right? Like, the story is always going to be king and the content is what's important, regardless of what happens, including, whatever AI is going to do to Hollywood. So we're at a point now where anyone can make a movie. So you're seeing that. Just like it happened before us with music, anyone can now make songs, and suddenly, YouTube just got saturated with everyone out there who has a guitar or a voice. But that's good. You end up finding some really great stuff, and you remove the piggies in the middle, and people are able to break through. So I think that's good for art. It's good for Hollywood. But yeah, it's sifting through. It's like, what's the algorithm that's going to help me find that? How do I get through the noise? I mean, I don't know about you, Logan, but I've sat down before with, Amazon Prime or Netflix or Hulu, whatever, and you look at what they're feeding you, because all they're going to feed you is the stuff that they've paid a lot of money for and want and need to push. And sometimes you'll go through 20, 30 thumbnails and you're like, I'm not feeling it, and you just stop. But the movie that you do want to see, Logan, is there. You got to get deep into the menu and you got to find it. And that's where, like, a lot of the independent movies are going. Like, they will be there. It's like my friend Lauren Seichman, who just did this great Bitcoin documentary called Unbanked, which we just saw in Santa Monica. That's going to be coming out on Apple TV, on Amazon Prime, on a few other platforms. Is anyone other than us Bitcoiners really going to find it unless they're sitting there and searching deeply? No, they're not going to find it because they're not pushing it, because it's not an Apple original. It's not a Netflix. Netflix didn't say, here's 40 million and then now let's push it. Because you can get your film acquired through a negative pickup. You know a lot of this from your studies as well. But so how can Bitcoin fix this? Well, for the filmmakers, for the production company, it can absolutely help them, because not only can it help their budget, it takes 5 to 7 years for the typical film to return all of its money by the time you've sold it to all the territories, all the ancillaries, all the, the different formats. Well, take 20% of that and stick it in your budget. Either make your movie for 20% less or raise 20% more. Just like with real estate or anything else, here's the magic box that you've added to the budget. Your film could practically lose all its money. What will happen to that 20% of Bitcoin over 5 to 7 years? Almost 2 epochs. And take it out to 2 epochs, you're doing even better. I mean, I still have films from 15, even 20 years ago, I'm still getting residual checks, like, because you just keep recycling them and whatnot. And HBO and Showtime will call me after a 7-year library lease is up, say, hey, do you want to renew this license? I'm like, oh, I forgot you even had that film. And they're like, yep. It's like, okay, great. Here's 50 grand. It's just like, and so these little things add up. So Bitcoin on one hand will help the filmmakers tell their stories, make their things. Of course, they still have to make something good, right? Like that, that of course is what will launch their career in and encourage audiences to request more from them. So they'll hopefully make more. But it also will help. So if fiat is inflating to the point it is, and if it's going to where we know it's going, in nominal terms, I think movies are going to become so expensive, and people will start migrating their dollars elsewhere into other assets and to other things, that I do believe that there's going to be a bubble or a bear of the streamers. Because right now it's due to their stock prices. They just have so much money, because in the fiat world, there isn't a lot of places to put your money. So you're putting in the Mag 7, you're putting in the tech stocks. I think I read this morning that the S&P 500, as of right now, it's 45% of it. So like, let's say almost half of basically our market is all in these tech stocks, including, Netflix and Amazon and whatnot. So Amazon can sell toothpaste, but they have enough money to make a stupid movie. So I think at a certain point that will come back down, which I think will help people. Hollywood, if Hollywood remains, I mean, and it will, an institution, just like fiat will always remain an institution. There's always going to be incentives to push the narratives they want to push, and so they'll find the money to push it the way they want. But at a certain point, people, and as more people become Bitcoiners, I think they'll demand better things. I think, right, Bitcoin, at least in the Bitcoin community, which we know is tiny, right? What is we less than 1% of the world population? We have a certain set of values and things that we find important. There's, attributes to life that we, if the Bitcoin message, if that permeates more into the consciousness, I think people will say no to a lot of the slop that's out there. I could be wrong, and maybe that's a huge stretch, but it seems like the slop is for all the pigs in the pen. It's just like, just feed me. I just want to feel good. So much of Hollywood, I want to say, and I'm going to extend this into like the media and social media, is really just to make you not really feel good about yourself. You're not pretty enough. You're not healthy enough. You're not wearing the right clothes. Like they're selling things, and I get that, but it's like, how great would it be to push out stories and movies and things out there and help you feel good about yourself, to give you, hope and show you that you're on the right path, but still tell a cool story. I don't know. I don't mean that it's so black and white. It's not really that polarizing. And there are great people in Hollywood and there are great stories. But to your point, Logan, it's not like it was in the 90s. You can go through every generation. It's like, even going back to, the 70s, which, and you have the Brian De Palmas and the Scorseses and Francis Ford Coppola, and right, and these guys and the stuff they came out with. Think about 3 Days of the Condor, or
R.I.P.
Marathon Man.
Yeah, love
Right?
Marathon.
Yeah,
Man.
think of all the
love Marathon Man.
Right,
Yeah.
like we're not getting that. MTV destroyed some of that. Fiat has destroyed some of that. Our attention spans are low. We want to sell people on junk food, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. You're getting at another topic that I'm interested in. First of all, I'm always plugging movies on this show for the audience. So just like before I forget, Marathon Man, Dustin Hoffman, guys, go watch that movie. 3 Days of the Condor, Robert Redford, R.I.P. Go watch that movie. But so you're getting at, Terrence, I think the importance of having a rich artistic environment in society, and I think the benefits you're kind of starting to get into, what like you're talking about, hope, content or art that inspires hope and sort of highlights our humanity and our ability to be, human and connect with each other in difficult circumstances and that sort of thing, which I think is really important societally to have a rich artistic environment where you have artists who are making things that are thought provoking, that have ideas that they're pushing out into the world that people can discuss at their dinner tables or at school, or at the coffee shop and stuff like that. I think that's important. And I think when you take that away, I think society loses, or I guess when the only pieces of art that are being put out is just this kind of one tiny little bucket that is meant to just make a lot of money. I mean, I think it's like superhero movies and Taylor Swift albums, and it's like no
Yeah.
disrespect to either one. It's like, it's
Right.
fine. It's the dosage, I think, that makes the poison, right? It's like if the only music that you listen to is Taylor Swift, then that's probably negative. If the only films that you see are superhero movies,
Well, yeah, you're gonna
that's a
hate
problem.
guys, right?
Yeah, so
That's
that's
what
a
I mean.
problem.
These messages, yeah.
Yeah, and so like I think it's the dosage, and so when you think about Bitcoin, you know, talk about maybe how do you view the importance of that? And what does society lose if we're not fostering an environment where artists are able to take more risks? I think artistic risk taking is important too. But why is I find myself always trying to pitch this to people like why is it important for us to as a society to have a rich artistic environment? Can you talk to that?
Yeah, so I think in the most simple terms, it's like being able to honor um your sacrifices, your decisions, your choices, like the things that you um gave up, your opportunity cost, whether it's academically, whether it's life choices. You want your energy to be honored in that, look, I was responsible. I didn't have the marshmallow, so I would like to have the two marshmallows later, right? And right now we live in a system where our currency expires on us. And since it expires on us, we have to spend it. And so we spend it on junk. When we spend it on junk, we aren't healthy. Our houses aren't healthy. Our families aren't healthy. Our garages pile up. We have to now rent storage units. We now have to move to a bigger place. We now are going to encourage, more plastics and more imports from China, and these $40 things we just throw away. Now our landfills are filling up. That's more methane and CO2 in the air. Like the domino effect doesn't stop of just consume, consume, consume. To be in a world where we could say, wait a minute, let me get just what I want. So I'm going to value quality. I'm going to value things that will last a lifetime. And it helps us value what we do. So it changes our mind, changes our incentives. And so it changes our choices. It's like if you look at a lot of the self-improvement stuff out there, I mean, some of it gets a little woo-woo, but it's kind of like there's so many modalities in how to be better at this, how to be more productive at that, more efficient at this thing over here. And if you're not, you can buy this system. And if not, well, then you can do this peel, you can do this dunk, you can do this sound bath, this, whatever it is. There's so much that's just meant to be all these Band-Aids to help what's already broken, and we're just not fixing, we're just not plugging the leak. And when you plug the leak, especially for artists who really struggle financially anyways, just because it's variable and it's sporadic and it's unknown, Bitcoin helps that. Like I've sat down with artists before, and especially people in Hollywood, regardless whether they're a costume designer or a gaffer or whatever. And it's like I'll say, look at the and I do this because I also have a mortgage company, so I actually have to dig into their finances when they want a loan. But I'll look at them and I'll be like, look at all this money here. Like if it was in a hard asset, if you were able, if you were a credited investor and could get these things that are close to the money printer, you can get into these sponsorships, you can get into these syndicates, artwork, in gold didn't have the friction it does, whatever. Like I'm just saying, set Bitcoin aside. You actually are making enough money to have the house and send your kids to school and do everything you want, but you can't get into those vehicles. So due to our, K-shaped economy, you're stuck down here with your wages in terms of purchasing power while the assets are going like this. And so you're getting further and further away. And so that influences the choices that they have to make as an artist. And what I mean by that is you now start doing things for others who are trying to tell their story or push their narrative, like Hollywood. Hollywood wants you to say this. And artists are all like, this is what I'm feeling, right? Like in the past, art has always reflected what has been going on, going all the way back to the Renaissance time or whatever. It's like we can tell what people were thinking at the time, politically, with the church, whatever, based on the art. And a lot of it was very beautiful art because at hard money times, it could last a long time. They just you didn't have to make these, cheap Home Depot hollow doors. You could actually have solid wood. And that's actually a pretty good metaphor for artists. It's like you can now make something with solid wood, which people do want and will appreciate if they can appreciate and value the money. But, you've probably heard me say this before, but, my whole entire argument, is the reason I titled my book Proof of Money, my entire argument is that we have never, ever in our lifetimes had money. Never. We always have used the word money, but all we've had is a currency. And now with Bitcoin, we finally have money because it meets all the definitions of money, mostly being that it is a storage for our wealth. Our spending ability is preserved.
Yeah, totally. Which I think is a powerful reframing and reshift, and people just wrestle with that. I think it's kind of hard to fully internalize that. It's taken me some time to fully internalize that, probably years to fully kind of internalize that. And I think
Same.
people come into Bitcoin and they think like, oh, I've been here a year, I understand it all. I thought that too, in like 2020. But it takes a while. Even now, like today, I discovered Bitcoin in 2017. I think I heard you describe it. You kind of,
We're the same.
yeah, but I wasn't like you. I wasn't like fully orange pilled until 2020. That was my
But
like,
that's how I am
yeah.
too. Yeah.
And so even now, like 5 years later, I find myself really, it's like I was like re-arriving, but in a deeper way at the same principles that I thought I understood years ago. And now I'm arriving at it again and thinking, okay, I'm here now, but I'm deeper. I'm much more, my roots are deeper, and I get it on a more fundamental level
Mm.
now, which I think is interesting because everybody kind of comes in and they just think, "Oh, I've read the books and I get it." Um, but
Yeah, I think
it's a
there's those
process.
two stages, because people are always like, when did you get orange pilled? And I'm like, well, what's your definition of orange pill? Because I
Yeah,
used to say, well, 2017, I came in 2017, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, wait a minute. It wasn't until COVID hit that it really opened my eyes and I says, oh, I need to go all in. I I thought I was a Bitcoiner. I
yeah.
had no idea.
I think it's kind of like the Amish have that concept of like where you become 18 or something, and then they let you leave. They encourage you to leave the community and just go see what it's like because they want you to voluntarily come back. And I mean, to me, that's kind of what
Mm,
the journey is. What I think a lot of Bitcoiners have this. What you were saying, it's like a
I
two
like
part
that.
journey where you dive in, and then there's a part of you that needs to sort of question things again a second time so that you can come back again and then say, okay, now I'm all in. Now I'm ready to put all my chips there.
That's
You
great.
said,
What is that called when they go like they go on
uh,
some walkabout?
yeah, it's basically that. It's like a walkabout. I forget there is a name for it. I should
I'm
Google
going to
it, but
use that. That is really good. I love that.
yeah,
Thank you
it's
for
really good. Yeah,
sharing
and,
that.
and it's like encouraged. Like they're supposed to go out and experience the world a little bit, and because they want you to, if you're going to come back to the community, they want you to be all in. And so that's that way you're not that way what the other world is like. So
Very
I think that's
cool.
interesting. You said something interesting too about when you kind of plug the leaks in the money. I think when the money is, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Like when the money is broken, I think there's so many things that are downstream of that, and we get into this when the money's broken, we kind of fall into this consumer culture that you were describing, where it's like I've heard you use the phrase, it's like a desire-based economy versus a need-based economy,
Yeah,
where everybody's kind of accumulating in order to kind of fill a hole in themselves a little bit. And what I think is sort of perverse is that, I think art used to be a way for us to connect to not just to each other, but a way to sort of fill that hole a little bit that was an alternative to filling it with just material goods. I mean, I think a lot of people I think who are even today would consider themselves, patrons of the arts or people who were involved in the arts and moved by the arts, they can kind of point to something when they were a child or when they were a teenager, when they were in college or a young adult, seeing something that really moved them and helped fill a part of them when they needed it. And I think,
100%.
like I said, the perverse thing about fiat is I think it's actually it's making it very difficult for artists to create that thing that then fills people's souls and binds them together such that people now deprived of that go seek that elsewhere in like material goods. Does that make sense?
It 100% does, because Hollywood would be like, look, we need this action movie. People don't want to think. It just has to run, run, run. And great. Every now and then there's something really clever and it's an amazing action movie. But you know how much slop there is out there? And especially TV. You know why network television is mostly bad? It's not all bad, but you know why? I'll tell you why. Because we literally get these emails directly from from the networks. They say when, the mom comes home Tuesday at 7 and she's starving and the kids are hungry, the dog is hungry, and she's now making dinner. When she turns on the TV, if she has to think too much or can't figure out the plot, she's going to change the channel. But if it's pretty simple and they're just like, oh, I get what's happening, she'll leave the channel there, which means she'll watch the commercials. And that in a nutshell, like that's an extreme, but that in a nutshell is why this stuff, you want to know why, and I don't mind calling them out. Watch CBS on a Sunday night. You might want to sit there and watch 60 Minutes so they can sell you drugs, but right after that, watch how bad whatever it is that comes on after that. Oh my goodness, it's the worst. Anyways,
Yeah,
I don't even know if I answered your question.
it's like the relationship I think between big pharma and like medicine, the food industry, where you are kind of being kept sick so that you can continue to seek treatment that costs money. And, you are sort of this like product that these other companies are making money off of. I think the relationship between like the media, and I guess like the film studios, like the entertainment industry broadly is similar. It's like we are going to inculcate in you this need for material possessions. We're not going to respect your ability to process or enjoy more complicated plots and stuff like that. We're going to treat you like
That's
we're
right.
going to infantilize you basically emotionally. But then we're going to kind of keep you always sort of desiring this dopamine hit. And we're just going to keep you in this little loop, this little wheel. And just like the kind of like pharma
That's
food wheel.
100% it.
And it's just hard to get out of that. And so for me, I'm hopeful that Bitcoin is going to help. But I mean, it's like, it's encouraging for me to see folks like yourself who are in the industry, but are also very much Bitcoiners
Yeah.
kind of
It
thinking about
will
this stuff.
help, even in the fiat world. So it's like, and before Bitcoin, let's say before Bitcoin, if you're a filmmaker, well, you basically just had to have a lot of fiat, so much that you could sort of behave like a Bitcoiner. And and you look at people like like Mel Gibson, right? So clearly he made a lot of money. Everyone said no to his Passion of the Christ. That's not going to make any money. No one wants to see that. He puts up all his own money. It is the highest grossing movie in history as far as net, as far as income, what he spent for it and what it made. And you get all these little and the little people. So I remember I was ridiculously young, but I remember when Swingers was going, Doug Liman's Swingers, right? That's another great movie, just this tiny little independent movie. It was circulating, and someone gave it to me, and they're like, hey, they're looking for, this was the independent world when I first came in. Hey, they're looking for $250,000. You go get the $250,000. It's yours. You can go produce it. So it's like I sat down. I met with Jon Favreau. I met with Jason Priestley was the lead back then from Beverly Hills 90210, which sounds funny now. And I was reading the script and I was like, okay, wow, this is so cool. Like, this is fun. It's LA, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't know, is anyone going to watch this? This isn't what Hollywood's doing. It feels just slice of life, rinky dink. Why are they calling each other baby? Whatever. Um, so yeah, that was a regret I had. Another regret I had was I'm friends with the writers of 10 Things I Hate About You, right? So I said no to that. I'm just like, I don't know. Now I went and made a competitor called 100 Girls, which did very well at Lionsgate. But still, it's just like, back to the Doug Liman or the Mel Gibson, it's like they just independently, they just did it on their own terms. They just raised the money, and they said, Darren Aronofsky, right? I remember being at
I
Sundance and
love Darren Aronofsky. Love Darren
amazing,
Aronofsky, yeah.
right? And like, he's so successful now, he could do whatever he wants. But back in the day, he had to go to friends and family and raise whatever he could. I'm even forgetting the name of the short he made, but he raised like $40,000 from his friends and family, and boom, he exploded at Sundance. And, I used to go to Sundance every year, and I would just be amazed. But, most of those people, over 90% of those people at Sundance, were coming there with their uncle's money, their bar mitzvah money, whatever. And, they'd spend $1 million on something. It's all gone. Like, so again, back to the point where you have to be good, and you have to do good work. Like, Bitcoin won't ever fix that, but it'll give you agency. And I've been talking to a lot of Bitcoiners. There's like a bunch of Bitcoin movies and Bitcoin stories. I mean, I'm developing at least half a dozen of them right now, and I want to make. And at a certain point, Bitcoin's going to get to the point where some of us Bitcoiners are just going to go make them, right?
Yeah.
Some of them are just going to be like, we're just going to go tell these stories. We're getting close to that. So,
yeah, I'm really hoping to. I'm excited about some of the Bitcoin films that are on deck. Hopefully, I'm hoping I'm going to get some of those directors and the folks involved on the show to talk about them. But I also think it'll be fun to see Bitcoiners. I have a friend who's a novelist, longtime Bitcoiner, wrote a novel. The novel has absolutely nothing to do with Bitcoin, but it's a great book. And so I like this idea too of eventually I want to see Bitcoiners use Bitcoin to kind of give them the runway to be able to take artistic risk and then to make things that actually have nothing to do with Bitcoin, that are just
yeah,
great stories, great human stories. And I think that, we celebrate now these feats of artistic risk taking that people have taken in the fiat world. I'm hopeful that Bitcoin will lower the bar a little bit. Like, you should not have to be Francis Ford Coppola leveraging your entire existence, your financial well-being, your mental well-being, the well-being physically of your cast, to make Apocalypse Now, just because you believe in it that much. We celebrate that, of course, because that's just a legendary artistic risk taking. I think it's probably the best example of, if you don't have a society where people are willing to do that, or where you make that something they can do, we are all going to be deprived of that
that's
genius, of
right.
that expression of genius, that he was able to give to us. But how hard is it to make? I mean, he was already rich, was able to do that, and he still had to basically bet the farm. We can't expect artists to do that like en masse right now. So I'm hopeful that
Right.
Bitcoin creates an environment where it's a little bit more plausible and reasonable for artists to take risks if they've been saving in Bitcoin for a few years. Hopefully, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because Bitcoiners share so much in common, and they want to push out a certain amount of, I mean, I hate to say education when it comes to movies or TV shows, but they want to they want people to wake up, right? Similar to what The Big Short did, or The Matrix, or even the TV show Mr. Robot, or V for Vendetta. Like, there's things that do help people wake up, and it doesn't have to be like Bitcoin, 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 but it can be in that world. I think people will get there because for the first time they can realize, oh, wait a minute, I can be a part of this. And a lot of Bitcoiners don't know because they don't know Hollywood, but, we can form these groups or these syndicates and say, hey, everybody, if we all stick in, zero point 0.1 Bitcoin, and we're going to get enough people, we all get to be part of this, and we get to tell this story and get it out there, and hopefully it'll do great. But we just don't have to make the same slop just to make it. And I'm guilty of that same thing. Like, I remember when American Pie came out, and when American Pie came out, literally, you could throw a rock. Anyone in Hollywood, like, we got to make these teen comedies. Are you kidding? We got to make teen comedies. So me and some of my producing partners, we sat down and we said, let's jump on this, and we made 5 of those movies. We did a 5-picture deal with Lionsgate, and they did well and everything, but it's like, I don't know if I even need to go back and watch my own movie again. Like, that did well at the time and it was fun. But it's like, with Bitcoiners, we're like, we could really tell that great story that we want to tell. And there's, oh, yeah, I mean, so here's what I was thinking the other day. It's like, there's sort of a degen in all of us. All of us, might like to go to Vegas once in a while. We might like to take a gamble on something. And we know that's why the crypto world, all the alternate coins other than Bitcoin are where they are, right? They teach people lessons, but they still get out there. It's like, well, let a movie be your shitcoin. Like, instead of taking a gamble over there on Solana X, be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, take this 0.1 of Bitcoin that you normally going to put into maybe a Bitcoin treasury company that wasn't doing so well or this or that. It's like, because you have your Bitcoin, shave off, life is short. You're running out. You're not going to have the chance to just like have a life experience. And, that's kind of that would be my pitch to people. I haven't pitched it yet, but just saying like, hey, let's all form something. Let's do this.
Yeah, and you can make something that you can be a part of something that you care about, that you value, whether it ends up being financially successful or not. You still made something. You've put something out into the world that didn't exist before, and then you get a call option basically on the financial success.
Exactly. That's
so,
well
Terrence,
said.
before I want to switch gears to talk to you about. I'm very curious I know you have a rich history in real estate, and I have a couple questions there that I want to get your thoughts on. But before we do, I'd be remiss if I don't want to leave the film subject before I ask you. You mentioned some films that I think most Bitcoiners seem to like the same group of films. Everybody talks about, The Matrix, Fight Club, like you said, Big Short, V for Vendetta, all films that I enjoy. Although I think my hot take is I actually think I don't love Fight Club. That's a conversation probably for another day. Mostly because I think it's like deeply nihilistic. It's mostly because I just don't like the book. I kind of hate the book. I think the book's terrible. I've said that publicly before, so don't at me.
I was surprised they were making the movie.
Yeah.
I didn't like the book either, and I was impressed with the movie, but I had to watch it a few times just to appreciate it.
And I think the movie is impressive because of David Fincher, because the lighting, the atmospherics of it, it's more of like a directorial achievement than a thematic one. Like I think thematically it's trash.
That's a really good analysis.
I think like it's good to like point out how utterly consumerist we are as a society. I get that is a valuable thing to do, but I think the idea that so we should just blow it all up. Like literally blow it all up. Not maybe the solution that I think. But anyways. That's an aside. I'm sure that I don't want to bring you into a situation where you're going to catch the shrapnel from the plebs. So I'll take that one, jump on that grenade. But what are some films? I mean, that you would that you just think are great films that maybe Bitcoiners aren't watching enough, that just stuff, in the canon maybe, or not in the canon, stuff that's maybe a little more unheralded. What are like top 3, top 5 films for you that are maybe not in the typical fare that Bitcoiners are viewing?
Oh boy, that's a really great question.
And I know I put you on the spot. It's a tough question to put folks who are like you.
It
who
is, because there's so many
movies. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many good movies for so many different reasons, and I feel like Bitcoiners have mostly seen the ones that I would say, like an Interstellar. I'm sure every Bitcoiner has seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like every Bitcoiner has seen those things, because those ones, not only are they entertaining, but they really make you think. I think Contact might be old enough that a lot of people haven't seen. Robert Zemeckis. Yeah, and I love all of Robert Zemeckis' movies. I mean, even Forrest Gump, as corny as it is, it really does make you think. But yeah, Contact. I think science fiction. I'm not a massive science fiction fan, but I think science fiction really. I mean, even going back to Space Odyssey, right? Like the classic with HAL, and it's like, man, how much of that is happening right now, especially with AI? Like, how weird, is it to? How weird would it? Oh yeah, because we didn't even have the word artificial intelligence then, did we? Yeah. I don't know.
On Nostr right now, I think the equivalent of Grok on Nostr is HAL, with the little.
Are you really?
Yeah, with the little red light thing of HAL.
Well, that's hilarious. That's awesome.
It's funny. For me, it's a little terrifying, but also funny. The whole Kubrick, I think Stanley Kubrick's entire run, is pretty good. Everybody should just go revisit all of Kubrick, I think.
Yeah.
Would be a safe bet. You've given people the Marathon Man recommendation and the 3 Days of the Condor. People should definitely get after that, get started on that.
Yeah, it's
But
so hard because there's so many movies I appreciate for so many different reasons. I mean, like I really enjoyed Moonlight, but I loved that it was made for $2 million, and
it's a
someone
beautiful
came out.
film.
It's a beautiful film.
Yeah.
I have the screenplay here on my desk, which I've read a couple times. I mean, I loved Baby Driver. I thought Baby Driver was great. Um, Damon. I don't even know how to say his name now. Chazelle,
Giselle. Yeah.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
who also did L.A. Story, or not L.A. Story. La La Land. Yeah, L.A. Story was an older movie with Steve Martin. Um, it's like I just appreciate something that's like clever and done in a different way, and like so recently I've been making these. Do you know what Screen Life is?
Mm-mm, I don't.
So I've been talking to some Bitcoiners about it, saying, listen, this is an economical way we can tell an incredible story. And I slipped Tomer Strolight, my friend, a cut that I did of my latest Screen Life movie, and he was like, okay, this really opens my eyes to how we can tell. So there's these entire movies. Let me start here. Did you see this movie called Unfriended
I don't
by
think so.
Universal? Okay, so it made $100 million. It was made for about 400,000.
Wow. Okay.
There's another one called Searching. I don't know if you saw Searching.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one
Fully
either.
close
Yeah.
to $100 million. Okay, anyways, so these movies, when you go, you sit down in the theater. The first scene is as if someone's opening their laptop. So all you could see, like you're looking now, all you could see is what the person is typing.
Mm-hmm.
But while they're typing, they could look at their security camera at their office and, oh, this is going on. They can pull up a YouTube video. They could watch the news. Someone could be texting them. They could even be making a FaceTime. All these screens can be going on. And the entire movie is from the second they open their laptop till they close it. That's the movie, meaning the whole movie has to take place in their laptop. Now, that sounds confining, and it sounds crazy for you to think, how can you do that? But it's unlimited what you can do. And most of the movie is made in post. Like the movie that I went and did, we actually shot in less than 6 days. All of the content. You wouldn't know it. You'd think we were shooting for 60 days, and it all gets brought back in. And anyways, I'll send you a link if you want to look. But
Yeah, I would
here's
love to
what
check it out. Yeah.
here's what it'll do, Logan. It'll blow everyone I show it to. It blows their mind. They're like, oh my god, I didn't think of making a movie this way. But by the way, the studios are releasing huge $100 million versions. I mean, they're spending 30-40 million on marketing for these little sub 100. Oh, there was another one. This was a high quality one. Focus Features released called Profile, and she
That
was a
one.
CNN reporter.
Yeah, that
You
one
hear
I
that?
think I have seen. I think I've seen that one.
Okay, well, it all took
Yeah.
place from a CNN report. She was going undercover, Al Qaeda. Anyways, so that's just an example of like how someone figured that out. Someone said this is pretty cool, and it's just a new way to watch a movie. But anyways,
Yeah. I mean, I
with
love the
Bitcoin,
idea of like putting constraints like that on. I think, like you said, it can actually be quite liberating. I mean, you see the same thing in poetry. I mean, anybody can write bad free verse. It's really hard to write like in
there you
iambic
go.
pentameter.
There you go. Yeah. And the reason that I like it with Bitcoiners, and Tomer was talking to me about this, is like, well, with Bitcoin, we're also dealing with code and the blockchain, and, because I want to tell the story of the early cryptographers. I want to tell the story of, different people who could have been Satoshi. And what if we
Yeah.
go back to that time period and we capture their communication on the computers? Now, we'd make it cinematic because we would voice it and they'd have video. We'd have to suspend disbelief a little bit with technology, but we could have fun stuff.
That is a great idea, actually, to do a version of that is the exploring the early conversations of the cryptographers, the cypherpunks, the people at the origin story of Bitcoin. That is because that's not just like it's not kind of like necessarily like a rah Bitcoin story either. That's actually a value. That's like a piece of history. You're telling an important moment and process in history. It's kind of like people have made movies on the history of the internet and the development of the internet. Um, it's kind of like
Yeah.
I mean, Oppenheimer is about the development of that technology as well. I mean, this is valuable technology the entire world uses, and you're telling the story
Yeah.
of its early days. I mean, I think that's I think very much a fruitful idea.
And we can do it Oppenheimer style as well. We just turn the music way, way up so you barely hear anybody. And
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, well, listen, Terrence, I want to quickly. I know that you got to jump in like 20 minutes, but I want to talk about you have been in real estate for a while. That's been, a part of your journey of trying to store your wealth is using real estate as a vehicle for that. And I know that you've had a variety of different businesses in real estate and you've been successful in real estate. But now you've unloaded a lot of it to move into Bitcoin for the reasons that you've elaborated on previously. But I'm curious to get your take on this. I have several Bitcoiner friends who have almost totally divergent views on real estate. Bitcoiners seem to be a little bit all over the place on real estate. I have one friend who makes this argument that he thinks that Bitcoiners actually should be buying real estate because of the social cachet that comes with being like an owner of real estate that then can translate into, I guess, influence. It's more of like a way to create and build influence in your community that hopefully leads to the idea being that then you can have Bitcoiners in the seats of power in communities and stuff like that. And he
mm,
kind of says that that's my argument for Bitcoiners buying real estate. And then I of course, have a bunch of other friends who are like, no, you're not. The hurdle rate is Bitcoin, and you're just never going to hit that unless you're measuring it in like a difficult to quantify thing like social cachet or
yeah.
influence. But how do you feel about that? Do you think that's important, the influence thing, or do you think there are other avenues to it, or does that? How do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's other ways to influence people if that's because that's a very expensive proposition to be buying real estate that mostly just rides in line with inflation and doesn't come close to Bitcoin just to influence people. You can influence people by being a great Bitcoiner, and you can set up your own, Shark Tank shop and say, "Hey, come to me with your ideas, and if I like it, I'll give you some Bitcoin, and you can go do your idea." Like that clearly can become a person of influence. You can have your own lending business. You can do whatever you want if you're a Bitcoin, or just them to see how happy you are and how free you are, and that you can wake up and go skip
Mm.
stones on the ocean or go skateboard and make a video if you want to. You're not, stuck driving a car to a job that you hate just to pay the mortgage and your education. Uh, I think a lot of Bitcoiners are saving in Bitcoin to have a house. I get that. That is like one of the number one goals for Bitcoiners. So I'm not down on real estate at all. I also think that if that's what you love to do and you can provide value, that you can improve the real estate, you can improve your community, you can make it look better, you can provide a place for someone to live, I think that's fine too. It's the store of value that I have real issue with all of the empty houses that I have in my neighborhood and that I see. I mean, there's so many of them over here in LA where it's foreigners, it's people from Dubai, it's people from China that they just sit empty. And it's like the Airbnb bubble, which is already bursting, and a lot of people are actually losing money on those right now. Because I think consumers are realizing hotels are kind of nice, and I don't have to pay $1,000 just to check out, and I don't have to wash the sheets and everything before I leave, and I get everything taken care of. So I think real estate, similar to the influence. To that guy wanting to influence someone or like show them, it's like an influence to me. It really is a brag. It really is a flex. It really is to tell people, look, I'm being responsible. I'm doing what we've always been told and taught, that when you have real estate, you're doing the right thing and you must be successful because you have real estate. But monetarily, you don't have to do that unless you like to do that. And a lot of people don't. Most people don't want to be landlords. Most people don't want the toilets and the trash and the taxes and the tenants. And unless you love doing that, there's no reason to. People really have to be honest with themselves. They really have to say, are you really going to use the utility of this real estate? Do you really want this place? Are you and your family going to really enjoy this? Or do you want the flex? Like I had that flex. I had so many properties. I loved to say that I had this place in Nashville. I didn't get to spend one night in it. I loved that I had this cool loft in downtown, like right there in downtown. I used to be a judge at the South by Southwest Film Festival. I was like, oh yeah, great, I'll go stay in my loft. Well, because it was an investment, it was always rented out or leased, so I couldn't stay there. Same
especially
with
like
my
during South by
Airbnbs.
Southwest. I'm sure that's probably a valuable time to for you not to be there.
Well, exactly. And same with Palm Springs. I'm like, oh my God, going to Coachella? How cool is it? Just stay here in this house? No, you want to rent it out for $3,000 a night because it's an investment and you want to pay
Right.
the mortgage. So it's like I was like, oh my God, it's just a flex. Like you want to go to a barbecue and say, oh yeah, I have this place in Joshua Tree. It's pretty cool. Do you get to stay there? No, not really. Why? Because I'm being successful with it as I have to be to pay the bills. In fact, you get stressed out. And so I think a lot of real estate bros are not intellectually honest about why they have it and what they want from it. And they will start to get honest when they realize it's just a balance sheet, that there's nothing tangible about real estate until the roof caves in or something bad happens, because until then they are just looking at the numbers. And one of the first rules in real estate is you can't get emotional. They know that if they can flip it in 6 weeks, you flip it in 6 weeks, because you don't have the cost of capital, all that debt carry for that amount of time. Or there's always an exit. Like, what's the exit? You know, we don't have an exit in Bitcoin, which is interesting, right? Like, it is this digital property that we go to, but we live in forever, because it does take care of us. It does support us. It does secure us. It does feed us. People are like, you can't live in your Bitcoin. I always argue the opposite. You can live in your Bitcoin. Your Bitcoin totally takes care of you. You're just not going north, south, east, west. You're going straight up. And so because of that, and because you get to enjoy it while it increases, and you don't have to take care of those four T's, the toilet, the trash, the tenants, and the taxes, why would you not want Bitcoin? And well, it's hard to brag. It's hard to be sexy. You don't walk into a party and, I mean, it's not a good idea to say, oh, I have a whole Bitcoin. But I think people will eventually, I mean, look, real estate's always going to be there. It's always going to go up. It's always going to capture fiat. But so like I'm faced with this decision right now. Like, my family is looking at we have a nice house here, but we're looking at a different house. And when we look at this house, it's like, okay, this would be great. Is it going to bring us that much more utility? Let's be careful. Spending this amount of money really represents all the sacrifices we made in the past. Do we really want to make these sacrifices in the past? Now our property taxes are going to go up. We're going to probably have higher maintenance costs. Everything is, because it's a larger house, blah, blah, blah. Do we really, really, really need that? And what does that mean? So in the past, if I wasn't on a Bitcoin stand and just fiat, oh yeah, we would have jumped in a house. We would have jumped in another house here, another house there, because we're just not thinking. It's just, yeah, we want another house. But now it's like, wait a minute, what's that house going to cost me in Bitcoin terms?
Hmm.
In 5 years from now, am I going to be okay saying that that's an $8 million house? It's like, oh my God,
Yeah, I think
that's going to be
Chamath, I
devastating.
think, I don't know if you remember when Chamath was tweeting about, I think he bought a house in Tahoe. He sold a bunch of Bitcoin like 6 or 7 years ago to buy it. And it's turned into like $1 billion mistake, I think is what he calls it. Cause it's exactly what you said. The money he would have had in Bitcoin had he just kept it, he could have bought probably 4 of those houses. So, well, my
Yeah,
last
CJ
substantive,
Constanos, CJ Constanos, who you might know, he's a
yeah, yeah,
Bitcoiner. He has the People's Reserve. He spent 100 Bitcoin for his, and he spent Bitcoin. That's not just in fiat terms. He literally spent 100 Bitcoin, which today is a $500,000 house. And he's like,
it's
okay, I'm
wild.
glad I got this for my family by that. And Simon Dixon, if you know who he is, who's pretty big on Twitter, um, spent 1,000 Bitcoin for his house. Now he's been in Bitcoin for a long time, but 1,000 Bitcoin today,
Yeah. I
like,
mean, that's
anyways.
generational wealth. Yeah. So my last substantive question for you, Terrence, is storytelling is obviously something that's really important to you. It's something that you've been working in and laboring in for a long time and making a lot of contributions in. Do you think that fiat culture is ultimately kind of like a collection of stories that we tell each other that we've all inherited? And do you think part of what we're doing in Bitcoin is trying to tell a more compelling, different story that we can all kind of culturally buy into? And if so, what do we need to do better in terms of telling the Bitcoin's story? Are we coming up short anywhere?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I think in general, most of the world is programmed through the education system, through the media. It's partially due to the economy and the experiences that we have of, how to live, how to go to school, to get a job, to get degrees, to, go higher up on the office floor, to get the corner office, to get the better title, to go into debt, to get the house, to have the kids, to blah, 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 right? Which lot of those are very good qualities and good things, but it's also becoming a debt slave to do it. We encourage people to leverage. We encourage people to take those risks in fiat, which are very difficult. And I think it prevents people from showing up to who they really should be, who they want to be. Why do we have to have second jobs, third jobs? Why do we have to have hustles? I mean, I wrote a whole book about side hustles, which I just cringe at now. Like how to make extra money doing all these ridiculous things that no one wants to do. And that is very much fiat culture, because with fiat culture, people are always like, oh, grow your money. It's, well, dollars don't grow. That is the problem. You actually can't grow your money when they're talking about currencies. You actually just need more of them, right? Whereas Bitcoin actually grows. You don't need more of it. I love that Lynn Alden once said, she's like, I'm so bullish on Bitcoin, I actually don't even need more. I was like, what? Because we're all saying we need more. We don't have enough. She's like, I'm bullish enough. I'm good. I'm like, oh, wow.
That's a great line.
Yeah. And so what Bitcoiners can do, I mean, what we're doing, but I think too many Bitcoiners, well, I don't want to say this the wrong way. What we can do better is just really teaching what money is. It's like I went to business school, and I was talking to someone about this, and I didn't once learn what money is. No one sat down and said, okay, so before we study all the financialization of money, this for the next 4 to 6 years, what is money? No one said what is money. Why wasn't I tasked with an essay? What is money? Never. And so for me anyhow, and I think a lot of Bitcoiners do a good job of this, is educating the difference between money and currency, that all we have right now are currencies. That's all we've ever had. And Bitcoin is money. And once we start to educate the difference, I think that's helpful. What I was going to say is I think too many Bitcoiners get judgmental and they get stuck on the technicals. They get too deep into the weeds. And there's a place for all of those autistic basement dwelling engineers and developers. We need that, but that's not helpful to the public. Like every time I try to put out a nice video and just say, hey, here's the importance of this. Here's what inflation really is. Someone's gonna, pull it apart with some weird technicals that do not help anybody at all. Like, well, you do realize Bitcoin doesn't even exist. It's like, yes, I get that technically. I don't know if the internet technically exists, but that doesn't help people come to the internet.
Right. Well, Terrence, look, I really appreciate you taking the time this morning to come on the show. Yeah, this was really, really fun. I hope we get to do it again sometime. I'm really excited to see all the things that you're up to working on, especially in the film and adjacent to the film industry. And, hopefully we can connect offline about some of that as well. But anything that you want to leave the audience with, and also, direct everybody to where they can follow you and where they can, see all the work that you're up to.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And yeah, by the way, I don't know if you have a separate film podcast or something, but I feel like you'd be really good at it. I can tell just randomly throwing things at you. You're very well versed in cinema, which is really cool.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm definitely hoping to talk to more, Bitcoin filmmakers, and there are a lot of them out there, I think, that I keep trying, kind of uncovering. And so getting them on here to talk about the stuff they're up to is definitely something I'm, working on doing. And I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I had long before Bitcoin and before podcasting was a big thing, I did 100 episodes of film. Like I talked to all my film buddies and TV people, and that was a lot of fun. But I'm enjoying Bitcoin much more. But I spend all my time on X or Twitter, and so people can just find me there at Proof of Money. And in the highlights tab, I make these skateboard videos that you're talking about, and I've got a couple dozen there, and I'm always making more, and I'm always looking for ideas on what people would like. Anytime I start to hear 2 or 3 things where people don't understand, whether it's mining or self-custody or whatever, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to make a video on that. But I'm always looking for good stuff. And then every morning 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. I host or co-host a show called Bitcoin Today, and we get 5,000 to 10,000 listeners by the time the show's over, and we're always talking about the current events, and some of its number go up, some of it's macro, some of it gets very spiritual, and we bring a lot of people on stage that a lot of Bitcoiners probably know. Sometimes it just gets silly, but it's
a
a
good
great
show.
play.
Recommend.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
thanks,
Well,
Logan. It was great. It's great meeting you too.
yeah. You as well, Terrence. Thank you so much for the listeners. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.